I have a confession to make. In this world of polarized views and really outraged opinions, to parody the words of Ado Amney in the musical Oklahoma, I'm just a girl who can't choose sides. I've always been this way. I grew up in a conservative Christian home with parents whom I loved, adored, admired, respected, and thought were really intelligent. But I also had a number of friends and colleagues over the years who I loved, adored, and also thought were highly intelligent. And they had very different points of view, and they all sounded really intelligent to me. Now, all these friends and family are on Facebook, and you can imagine with what's going on out there that on any given day, my Facebook page is about to explode. But one thing I've realized over the years is that no matter what happens or what facts are thrown out there, my friends and family, no matter where they are on the spectrum of political beliefs and worldviews, remain absolutely certain about their opinions, no matter what facts are presented. And this has helped me realize that when there's a world in uproar, it's stories, not facts, that are going to save the day. And here's how. We have become a nation of fact slingers. We have our favorite sources, whatever they might be, the New York Times, Fox News, CNN, BBC, name your favorite news outlet. And we have an opinion and we sling facts at people. We say, oh yeah, well what about this and this and this? And the people who are there go, oh yeah, whoo, 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 bam, bam, bam. Take this and that and that. Have you guys experienced that? Yeah? How successful has that been for you? Has anyone unfriended someone or been unfriended on Facebook? Yeah. Yeah. And that's because research out of Stanford way back in the 1970s showed that once we form our opinions, it doesn't matter what facts we're presented with, we rarely, if ever, change our minds. And get this, it even gets more extreme. Not only do we rarely change our mind, but actually, if we're presented with a set of facts that goes against what we think, we become more entrenched in our point of view, by golly. This is because we have two forms of cognition. We have intuition, that I just know it. I just know it. And we have reason, the images and the words that we are aware of. Jonathan Haidt likes to talk about how our mind is divided in two, the rider and the elephant, where the rider is reason and the elephant is 99% of the mental cognition that happens below the surface that we're not even that aware of. That makes a lot of our decisions for us and determines what we do and what we think. Now, here's the thing about the rider. The rider is reason, and reason, rather than seeking truth, seeks justification for the elephant. The rider is the spokesperson for the elephant. The rider justifies what the elephant wants to do or what the elephant is thinking. We have what some researchers call a my side bias. Our reason almost always takes our side. We are really, really good at breaking apart other people's arguments. When it comes to our own, though, we're not quite so objective. Each of us has our own individual lens that colors our view. This is very natural. It comes from our experience, how we grew up, the different impacts that have been done to us, all of these things. And the thing about our lens is that we're not even aware we have it. And now I'm going to say something that might be slightly scandalous to some people in the room, and that's this. Fox News is to liberals what the New York Times is to conservatives. Everybody thinks their news source is the right one. And actually, difference is not a problem. Difference is good. Where we get into problems is when we think that it's our view, our lens, that's the only lens. Most difference and violence and prejudice does not come from the difference itself. It comes from our mistaken explanation for that difference and our inappropriate conclusions about the people that we're considering. You know, your mother may have said to you, rightly so, put yourself into somebody else's shoes. And that can be good advice, except for if we put ourselves into somebody else's shoes and we're wearing our own individual lens, we're highly likely to be inaccurate about the shoes we're wearing. This is why it's stories, not facts, that can be transformative. Stories transform because they speak to the elephant. They take us out of my side bias, and they give us another lens from which to consider things. Let's talk about that elephant again. I'd like to suggest that storytelling bypasses the writer altogether and goes straight to the elephant, where it speaks to emotion and empathy. Paul Zak, a researcher, has actually done studies that have shown that storytelling literally changes the brain chemistry. Fiction, that narrative arc where you're in the midst of a story and there's hurdle after hurdle and the climax comes and there's resolution and you go, wow, that was great. The brain releases oxytocin, and oxytocin helps us to connect with each other and develops empathy. Our brain on facts is barely lit up. Our brain on story has all these things happening. We are actually experiencing story as if it is happening to us. I love this quote. Fiction is a powerful and ancient virtual reality technology. How cool is that? This is because we have mirror neurons. When we are listening to a story, watching a story, when we are involved with a narrative, our brain lights up as if we were experiencing it for ourselves. The same neurons fire. And this is how we actually can get into another person's shoes. Now, the amazing thing about this is how quickly stories can transform. I want you to consider just real quickly 3 novels made a huge impact on the American culture. Uncle Tom's Cabin showed the horrors of slavery. The Jungle by Upton Sinclair showed how rotten, literally, the meatpacking industry at the turn of the 20th century was. The Grapes of Wrath highlighted the tragic plight of migrant workers. All these novels came onto the American scene, were instant bestsellers, and within a year, they had changed legislation and they had brought about a significant impact. It doesn't matter the media. Let's think about TV and film. Modern Family and Will and Grace totally changed the tone of the gay rights movement and normalized it in a way that was quicker than any other civil rights movement in the history of the United States. I'd like to talk about a personal project as well called Carnation. It's a podcast written through the nonprofit I'm involved with, StoryArk. And this is a group of immigrant students who in their first episode wrote about a fictitious story about deportation and what happened to a 17-year-old girl and her family when the Mexican father was deported and left them without their primary breadwinner, and how they plunged into poverty and the stresses that that entailed. I had a Trumpian Republican friend who listened to this episode and right afterwards said, we don't want the drug dealers and the criminals, but we should have a pathway for good people to stay with their children. That's the power of story. Now, I don't want to throw out facts. I'm not saying facts are bad. Facts are vital. All those stories I told you about were based on facts. But it's story that provides context. It's story that provides understanding. It's story that helps us move forward. using those facts. And here's where our hope lies. In a world of uproar, with just a twist, we can stop slinging facts and we can start telling stories. And imagine, what if we were to write a new story that made the old one obsolete? The old story of bitterness, acrimony, and division. What if we were to create a montage of individual, unique stories that became a part of the greater American narrative? What if your story plus my story equaled our story? I'm willing to listen. How about you? Thank you.